The room is quiet, but her mind is not. Sofia sits in the dim light of her apartment, phone in hand, watching one more notification bloom across the screen like a tiny promise of relief. Outside, the city keeps moving. Inside, time feels strangely suspended, as if her life has been waiting for permission to begin. She knows what she wants. She has known for years. Learn the languages, build the business, shape the body she keeps promising herself she will earn. Yet every evening ends the same way. One more scroll, one more video, one more small escape that asks for nothing and gives the illusion of everything. And that is the cruel part. Procrastination does not always look like chaos. Sometimes it looks like calm. Sometimes it wears the face of "I'll start tomorrow" and speaks in a voice so reasonable that it feels harmless. But behind that voice is a system trained to choose comfort over growth, relief over responsibility, now over later. Sofia is not lazy. She is caught in a battle most people never name for what it is. A reward system that has been hijacked by instant pleasure. She leans back, staring at the ceiling, and the weight of unfinished promises presses harder than any deadline ever could. There is frustration there, yes, but also embarrassment. The kind of embarrassment men know well when they realize they have been negotiating with their own mind and losing. Not in public, in private. In the small, repeated decisions that shape identity. In the gap between who they say they want to become and how they actually spend their hours. Maybe you know that feeling. That strange mix of ambition and self-betrayal. You wake up ready to change. Then somehow the day slips through your fingers. You tell yourself you will do it after breakfast, after work, after one more break, after one more distraction that quietly drains the strength you needed for the real task. And the more often it happens, the more it begins to feel normal. If this sounds familiar, take a second and like the video. Not because liking it changes your life by itself, but because acknowledging the truth is the first crack in the wall. What is stealing your focus the most right now? Is it your phone, your environment, your habits, or the pressure you keep carrying in silence? Because Sofia is about to face a reality that many men avoid for years. When tomorrow becomes a lifestyle, it eventually becomes a prison. And when that prison finally starts to close in, there is only one way out. At first, Sofia doesn't notice the trap because it looks so harmless. It feels like a quick check of her phone, a few minutes of scrolling, one more video before she starts. The room is quiet, the light from the screen soft on her face, and somewhere in the distance her goals wait patiently like unopened letters. Learn a new language. Build something of her own. Get stronger. Become the kind of person who does what he says he will do. But every time the moment of action arrives, her mind reaches for the easier reward, the faster comfort, the cleaner escape. She tells herself the same story millions tell themselves. I'll do it tomorrow. And tomorrow always sounds reasonable. Tomorrow sounds disciplined. Tomorrow sounds like a man in control. But tomorrow is just today wearing a mask. The body remembers every promise left unpaid, and the mind, fed on instant gratification, begins to weaken its appetite for effort. That is the hidden danger. Procrastination is not laziness in the simple sense. It is training. Every delay teaches the brain that discomfort can be avoided, that pressure can be escaped, that relief matters more than progress. Sofia begins to see the pattern in the small moments. She opens her laptop to work, then checks messages. She puts on her running shoes, then sits down for a second. She looks at language lessons, then loses herself in something easier, softer, more entertaining. Each time, the reward arrives too fast, and each time, the cost is paid later in silence. Not with pain all at once, but with something worse. Self-respect slowly leaking away. There is a special kind of frustration that comes from knowing exactly what to do and still not doing it. One evening, she catches her reflection in the dark window beside her desk. The face looking back is tired, not from work, but from avoidance. And in that moment she feels it clearly. The life she wants is being delayed by the very habits she uses to protect herself from discomfort. If this feels uncomfortably familiar, you already understand how powerful this trap can be. And maybe that's why this message deserves a quiet like. Because it isn't about blame. It's about waking up. What Sofia does next is not dramatic. It begins with honesty. She starts asking a harder question. If my attention can be stolen so easily, what have I been feeding my mind? And when she follows that question to its source, she realizes the real enemy was never the task in front of her. It was the environment around her and the invisible system inside her, both working together to make discipline feel impossible. Until she decides to interrupt the pattern one choice at a time and build a different future from the same broken day. The breaking point didn't arrive with applause or drama. It came in the middle of an ordinary day, when Sofia looked at the calendar and realized how many versions of herself had been buried beneath the word tomorrow. 3 years had passed in small stolen moments of comfort, in endless scrolling, in the promise that she would start when she felt ready. But readiness had never come. Only the same heavy silence, the same unfinished plans, the same quiet disappointment staring back from the mirror. She sat at her desk, phone face down, laptop open, and felt the truth land harder than any insult. Her life was not being destroyed by a lack of dreams, but by a system that had trained her nervous system to choose relief over growth. The body wanted ease. The mind wanted escape. And every time she reached for something easy, she paid for it later with guilt. That's how procrastination survives. Not through laziness, but through repetition. Through reward. Through the lie that one more distraction will make the pain go away. If this hits close to home, give this a like. Sometimes the first step toward discipline is simply admitting that the battle is real. Sofia stood up and walked to the window, watching the city move with its usual urgency. Men heading to work, faces set, shoulders tight, each one carrying his own private war against impulse, fatigue, and mental noise. She understood something then that many men only learn after years of frustration. Willpower is not a plan. If your environment keeps feeding weakness, your discipline will always be on defense. You cannot ask a tired mind to win a fight that your surroundings are designed to lose. So she began to change the room before trying to change herself. The phone was moved out of reach. Notifications were silenced. Snacks disappeared from the desk. The chair, the lighting, the open tabs, the background noise, everything was redesigned to make the right choice easier and the wrong choice inconvenient. It felt almost too simple, but that was the point. Real self-mastery is often less about heroic effort and more about intelligent arrangement. Pain becomes useful when it tells you the truth fast enough to act on it. And when the urge came, as it always does, she didn't negotiate with it. She watched it rise, peak, and pass like a wave. That was the beginning of a new kind of strength. Not the strength of forcing yourself to act while trembling, but the strength of becoming the kind of man who no longer needs constant rescue from his own impulses. The question is, what has stolen your focus the most? Your phone, your habits, or the comfort of waiting? And if you're ready to take control back for good, the next part will show you how to make discipline feel natural instead of impossible. When Sofia finally sat in the silence she had been avoiding for years, the truth felt heavier than any excuse she had ever used. The room was the same, her phone still glowing on the table, but something inside her had changed. She could see it clearly now. Every delayed dream had not disappeared. It had simply been postponed by habits that were quietly shaping her life. And that realization, as painful as it was, carried the first real taste of freedom. She began with something small. Not a heroic transformation, not a perfect new identity overnight, but a deliberate choice to remove the easiest sources of distraction. Notifications went off. The apps that kept pulling her into endless loops were no longer sitting one tap away. Her environment changed before her willpower had to be tested. And that was the lesson that hit her deepest. Discipline does not always begin with more strength. Sometimes it begins with fewer temptations. Days later, she opened her language notebook. Then she laced up her shoes and went outside. Then she worked for 1 focused hour without checking her phone. 1 hour became 2. 2 became a rhythm. The strange thing was that the work did not feel easier because she suddenly became a different person. It felt easier because her surroundings stopped negotiating against her future. Her mind, once flooded with noise, started to remember what clarity felt like. For a long time, Sofia had believed motivation was supposed to arrive like lightning, powerful and dramatic. But now she understood something wiser. Real power is built in quieter moments, when no one is watching and no applause is waiting. It is built when a man decides that his impulses will not own him. It is built when discomfort is no longer treated like a threat, but like a signal that growth is happening. And maybe that is the real battle for all of us. Not against time, not against talent, but against the part of the mind that always says, later. The man who learns to master that voice does not just become productive. He becomes harder to break, harder to distract, harder to defeat. He becomes someone his future can trust. If this message hit close to home, give the video a like so it can reach more men who need to hear it. And be honest with yourself. What steals your focus the most right now? Drop your answer in the comments. If you want more guidance on psychology, discipline, and self-mastery, subscribe now, because the next step is learning how to protect the progress you've just begun.